3 million people watched Coachella on YouTube this spring. They thought they were watching a music festival. They were also test subjects. Google didn't announce this. There was no opt-in prompt, no pop-up asking if you'd like to help train an AI system. You watch the headliners, and somewhere in Google's data centers, your behavior was being logged, scored, and fed into a model. This is the story of how one of the world's largest tech companies turned a music festival into a laboratory. And why the uncomfortable part isn't that they did it, but that it was entirely legal. Coachella isn't just a festival. Since 2011, YouTube has held the exclusive streaming rights. What started as a basic single-camera livestream became a multi-camera production, then an interactive experience, and now, in the current AI arms race, a testing environment for Google's most ambitious features. The numbers matter here. In-person attendance runs around 125,000 people per weekend. The YouTube stream draws millions across the globe. For a company trying to validate AI features before deploying them to billions of users, that's an unusual opportunity. A massive, concentrated, highly engaged audience all watching the same content at the same time. A controlled variable you can't buy in a lab. Google had been under real pressure heading into 2025. The Gemini rollout had visible stumbles. YouTube's AI features, ambient summaries, inline search, AI-generated artist cards, needed real-world stress testing. Not the kind you do with a few thousand internal testers. The kind you do with millions of people who have no reason to behave differently because they don't know they're being watched. Coachella gave them that. What Google ran wasn't a vague data collection effort. According to reporting that surfaced after the event, the company ran structured A/B tests on viewers of the Coachella stream, dividing the audience into groups and serving each group a different version of the YouTube interface. Some viewers got AI-generated artist summaries appearing mid-stream. Others saw a new embedded AI search interface activated during set transitions. A third group got neither. They were the control. None of the groups were informed. No disclosure during the stream. No notification after. No acknowledgement in press materials. The questions Google was trying to answer were behavioral. Does an AI summary increase how long a user stays on the page? Does embedded search reduce the rate at which viewers leave to open a separate tab? When a viewer engages with an AI-generated artist card, do they watch more content afterward? These are the exact metrics that determine whether a feature ships to 2 billion users or gets shelved. Coachella was, in functional terms, a clinical trial, run without telling the participants they were in one. This is where things get structurally uncomfortable. Google's terms of service explicitly permit testing new features on users. You agreed to this when you created a Google account, almost certainly without reading the relevant section. The language is deliberately broad. Google reserves the right to test, modify, and measure its services, and to use behavioral data to improve products. Legally, the company was on solid ground, but legal and ethical have never been the same category, and that gap is worth examining carefully. Academic standards for human subjects research require informed consent for any study where participants are systematically observed and their responses analyzed. Tech companies have spent 2 decades arguing that product testing doesn't qualify, because the stated goal is improving the product, not generating publishable research. The distinction is getting harder to defend. When a company runs controlled experiments with defined hypotheses, treatment and control groups, and outcome metrics, and then uses those results to make billion-dollar product decisions. Calling it a feature rollout rather than research is a choice of language, not a description of methodology. The methods are identical. Coachella viewers didn't consent. They didn't know there was anything to consent to. The scale deserves attention. 3 million viewers across 3 weekends, multiple treatment conditions. Behavioral signals including watch time, click-through rates, scroll behavior, and search queries initiated midstream. For logged-in users, those signals were layered on top of existing Google profile data. Years of search history, location patterns, prior viewing behavior. None of this stays in a Coachella silo. The insights feed into YouTube's broader AI systems, which influence what 2 billion users encounter every day. Decisions made from a music festival in the California desert propagate outward into every YouTube session globally. That's not speculation. That's the explicit purpose of large-scale A/B testing. A concentrated, high-engagement event like Coachella produces cleaner behavioral signals than diffuse everyday usage. The experiment's value comes from exactly that concentration, and the conclusions drawn from it don't stay at the festival. Here's what keeps getting avoided in coverage of stories like this. We have collectively accepted a contract most people don't know they signed. The deal is this: you get free content, free infrastructure, free tools. In exchange, your behavior is raw material. Not in the abstract, your data helps us improve, framing that everyone has learned to scroll past. In a very specific sense, you are a labeled data point in an experiment with a hypothesis, control conditions, and a conclusion that will ship to billions of people. The Coachella test isn't unusual. By industry standards, it's routine. What makes it visible is the specificity, a named event, an identifiable audience count, discrete features tested on separable groups. Normally, these experiments are invisible. They just look like the product behaving slightly differently for some users. There's a reason tech companies never use the word experiment. It carries ethical weight that feature rollout doesn't. Rollout implies you're receiving something. Experiment implies you're contributing to something, without being asked whether you're willing. The live question isn't whether Google should have been more transparent. They should have. The live question is whether TOS-based blanket consent is a defensible substitute for actual informed consent when the scale reaches millions of people and the outcome shapes the information architecture of a global platform. Regulators in the EU have started asking. The FTC has opened adjacent inquiries. The window where this stays purely a corporate ethics question, rather than a legal one, is probably shorter than the companies involved would prefer. The Coachella stream is still on YouTube. You can watch the whole weekend right now. And if your experience looked slightly different from a friend watching the same set at the same time, different interface elements, different overlays, different suggestions, you weren't imagining it. You were just in a different group.